that senior class trip. So I took the test and got into aviation high school, and eventually became a federally licensed aircraft mechanic.
And were you happy?
I gotta be honest. It is, other than being a musician, it is the greatest career I could have ever embarked on. Extremely challenging, very fulfilling. I mean, I don't want to trivialize it, but what's better than getting paid to play with an airplane?
Playing a flute.
Well, other than that, yeah, yeah.
Well, didn't you miss it? Did you miss music all those years, or?
I never fully put my flute down. There was even a period of time, to be honest, I didn't know how to practice. I would play like with the radio, but I didn't know how to practice technique. I didn't learn that until in my 20s, late 20s, matter of fact. But yeah, flute for me is my natural musical voice. It's my truest form of emotional and artistic expression. So though, yeah, it's what I wanted to do. It's that difference between, I hope no one's offended by this, being male and being a man. Because once, 21, I was just before turning 22, I got married, and 22, here comes the first child. And you realize this is not about you anymore. This is about being a man. You got to take care of them. They come first. And, if you could balance the two, great, but it's really hard to do that when you're working a very important and potentially high stress job on night shift, especially. Where's the time,
Yeah.
So it just took a back seat.
Well, it took a backseat for a while, but I want to talk about age 34. What in the hell happened at age 34 that brought you back to releasing your first CD?
Maybe it was a result of a concussion. I don't know.
It's almost like you going, as I was saying. Yeah.
So in my early 30s, I was back heavily involved in music at church. And then I just had this burning question. I asked myself, I wonder if I'm good enough to do this for a living, to do this professionally. And I couldn't think of another way to answer the question than to jump out there and try. And made all kinds of mistakes. Oh, dear God.
But why then? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Darryl, but why then at that moment? Can you tell everybody? Or?
I can't put my finger on why there was nothing, because by that time at 34, my goodness, 34, we were married 13 years, had 3 children, all girls. So there was nothing really different in my life. It was just, I guess part of it could have been, in retrospect, it could have been the fact that I just didn't want to live any longer with the potential of regret. To me, there's almost nothing worse than regret.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because, with regret, it's always, but could I have and should I have? And it's always when it's too late to do anything about it. So believe it or not, one of my inspirations, though, I don't remember his age when he really had his breakout in his career. I grew up watching public television, Sesame Street, followed by The Electric Company. Okay. And my favorite person on The Electric Company, his character was called Easy Reader, and that was Morgan Freeman. So as a kid, I grew up watching this guy, and then all of a sudden, it seemed to me boom, he's on the big screen. Yeah. But he wasn't young when that happened. So
Yeah.
You know, who knows when it's your time, it's your time, but it'll never be your time if you don't jump out there.
Yeah, I think his first breakout movie was the one about prisons in the 1990s, early 90s or late 80s.
We're not talking about Shawshank.
Shawshank, yes.
That was his earliest.
That was his first breakout movie. Yeah, and then
Wow.
after that he did Glory, you know, and but that was his first real breakout role.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was then in his 40s or early 50s.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So at 34, you start to go into the studio and you start to put music together. Did you know other musicians? I mean, did you write the songs for that first?
Oh, this was a near disaster. It could have been much worse. There happened to be a gentleman, and I owe him so much. They're two older gentlemen that I owe a lot to. They're both passed on now. The first name was Sam Harrell. He was kind of like he was definitely a family friend, kind of like like a great uncle in a way. And he was the one who actually started me out playing in clubs and stuff. So props to him. And then the guy who I don't even know how I met this guy. His name was Jim Woodland in Philadelphia. And he owned he had a studio. He had two row houses on the same street, about a block apart. He lived in one. The other one, the downstairs, he converted into a studio. He used to be a bass player. And he took a liking to me and allowed me to record the whole album at his place. And so he was one of the producers, along with a good friend of his, which is now a very dear friend of mine, Wayne Garrick. And we everything, to my recollection, except for one song on that album, all the music was sequenced, all of it.
Oh.
Yeah, everything was out of the
Okay.
the Roland. I'm going to say the JV 1080. I know it's not the number.
Yeah.
JV 80, whatever it was. I don't remember.
It's Roland. Yeah.
Yes. So everything was out of that. And
Wow.
the only song that actually had live instrumentation on it was, I believe we put this on that album. I believe we did. Was a song called Bronx Groove, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a groove. There's no melody, but people hear that song, and next thing you know, heads are bobbing, and yeah.
Well, that's terrific. You know, I want people to hear your music. So I want to start off by playing the song Resilient. But why don't you tell people the backstory on Resilient?
Resilient, if obviously it's the single of the title, it's the title track. And this album follows, like you said, 10 years behind Relentless. And Relentless and Resilient, by definition, are close cousins, right? So Resilient, if anytime you're trying to do something outside the box, be prepared to be knocked down a lot. So Resilient is dedicated to that resilient mindset. And when I came, I'm trying to remember which part of the song I came up with first. It wasn't even the flute part. It wasn't. It was actually the strings part. I believe that's what it was. And so I got with this particular producer. Name is Cortez. We call him Taz Fields. He's out of Memphis. And when you put Memphis soul and funk together with this Bronx brain that's cluttered with so many different kinds of music that I love, and we came together and made this song. And I really don't like talking about my stuff, but this song is fire.
Well, now you understand Ian Anderson. That's how his brain works too. So, yeah. Okay, let's play Resilient for everybody, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Okay.
Wow. That is powerful. That
Oh
is
my
powerful.
God! I'm sorry. I can't. Let me. All right, full disclosure. But Jason, thank you, brother. And I saw another comment, but I'm not seeing all the other comments. Sorry, folks. Okay.
Here's another one for you.
Oh,
Here's
thank
another
you,
one.
thank you so much. Thank you.
And
Um,
here's another one.
this kind of
This is the best of crossover jazz
that's
that
what
hits
I'm
my
talking
soul.
about, Samantha. That you got to feel that thing. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, yes. Not elevator music. No offense to anybody, but
No,
anyway. Um, full
do you?
disclosure. That song. And this is generally the way I record my songs. I present a song idea to my producers, whomever they are. My producers then send me back their interpretation of my song. And with certain rare exceptions, I never box anybody in. So I can't take credit for everything you hear. I didn't tell the bass player to play that way. I didn't tell the drummer. I didn't tell the keep. My producers basically have free reign. Um, and, and for example, it wasn't on this song. There was another song, but same producer on Resilient. That's Taz Fields. There was a bass player playing on. Oh God, I can't think of the name of the song right now. And Taz tells the bass player Alex, remember, someone else is going to have to play this someday. And I told Taz, I said, Taz, don't box him in. Let him go. Just
Yeah,
let him go. And in most cases, as strange as it may sound, my flute is the last thing to get recorded.
that's
They,
interesting.
they have no idea what I'm going to play, which for some musicians, it's hard because, well, I don't want to step on them. You ain't going to step on me.
Yeah.
Because the way I do my songs, it's designed to be a conversation between instruments. So that's why sometimes you'll hear call and response between the flute and somebody else, but the whole thing is a conversation and freedom of expression. That's what I love about songs like that.
Well, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it so much reminds me of Tull. The way you approach the flute, because his background, he played with the London Symphony Orchestra before he went into rock. But he tore that flute up,
Yes, he
and
did.
and that's what you do in this song. It's a breathtaking song. I
Thank you.
really love it.
Thank you very
It's
much.
wonderful. So you had some people. You had other comments too. A lot of people were listening into your music. Darryl, share with the audience. When you've released 4 albums. When you
Yeah.
released Resilient, you released your first single, On the Run. Why that one? Why did you choose to release that one as your single? And also, why didn't you release a single before? A lot of people do. They come out with a single, they come out with an EP, they go to an LP. You kind of did this kind of backwards, and
Yeah. I
not that
did
not
I
that it's, yeah,
did not tell you they made every mistake possible. I still make mistakes.
yeah, but there's no right and wrong here. It's just unusual. It's just unusual.
I am unusual. I'm I'm a nearly 6 foot tall, 200-pound guy from the South Bronx who played football, who plays the flute. So really unusual. But seriously, I On the Run, wonderful song. And no offense to the song or the people involved. In my opinion, it's not the best song on the album. It was what I thought it was a business decision. Because of one of the co-writers and the producer of the song, name recognition, I thought would play better with the movers and shakers in radio. That's the long and short of why that song was released first.
How did you get radio time? What did you do?
Like everybody else got to pay for independent radio promoter.
Yeah.
And I'm deliberately walking on eggshells here because I'm really not trying to offend anybody.
Yeah.
But it's not I'm not impeaching anybody's integrity. I just understand how business works, And if for example, if I'm working with you and you're my mainstay, you're where my bread is buttered, and then an alternative shows up over here, though I may be profiting from it, why would I cut off my nose to spite my face to help this when my bread and butter is here? So there's a lot of that in the industry.
Yeah.
And as you well know, people want what's familiar for them, what's comfortable for them. Because if you're a radio promoter, you're not going to present something that you fear will tarnish your reputation with the radio people.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. So it's a delicate balancing act there. But I just, again, I thought that because of that producer, he had at the time, I think, a dozen #1 Billboard hits to his credit. I figured, you know what, this is a good shot to opening the door.
Yep. I get you. You know Adam Leibowitz, I presume.
Yes.
Yes. And I've had a number of. I select some of the artists from his smooth jazz list, who, as I told you, have an edge. And I've had a number on my show, and it's, he does a good job getting radio time.
Yes.
For his
Very
artists.
much so. Very much so.
He works very hard, and he's very skilled at it.
He is.
And that's another thing that, you and I talked before the show started about the change in the music industry from what I described to you as structured, with
Yes.
record labels and radio, actually manage the artists in every respect. And now you have your own record label, obviously, that's what you produced. You have to have your own management team. You have to have your own, radio promoter that does your publicity. And you need to have a producer. You have to put the whole thing together yourself. And I mentioned, in my mind, it went from structure to chaos. I think the music industry is chaotic, and what makes it difficult is so much noise out there, because everyone is like Andy Warhol's 15 Minutes of Fame. Everybody can be heard.
Right.
You put something out on, with your program music studio on your desk at home, and you do a cakewalk. It's not, you don't have to play any of the instruments, and then it gets played on on streaming, and there's so much noise. Getting recognized, if you're a quality musician, is very difficult.
I don't think I could have said it any better than that. The reality is, it's kind of like in any product, because let's be honest, music is a product.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to get the most attention is usually not the best quality, not usually. And let's not forget, we also live in a country that, I still remember this, people, that sold millions of pet rocks. See, that laugh tells you it's true. So, but it's kind of like, I won't name the con in this, the pro side I'll name. Most people in this country, for example, have never heard of this super group called Snarky Puppy.
Oh my God, out of Texas. They were on my show. They were on this show also.
Really? Oh my good. I mean, just these are cats who just top of their craft, every single musician, to the point where when I got to see them live, a friend told me later, I was standing, everybody had to stand, and I was standing right up at the stage, and the entire show, my mouth was open. I was just in awe. But most people don't know who they are, and they've got some of the best music around.
Absolutely. No question.
Folks in Europe know who they are. Folks, don't know. But anyway.
But that's typical. If you typical for most artists who really have made a name, they start off here, they go to the UK and the EU, and then they come back here as stars, because the EU and the UK appreciates the music, promotes it, plays it, and then, oh yeah, I know who you are. But to start off and become an artist that hits the top tier here, and without going to Europe, is very difficult.
It is, and of course, like anything else, there are financial items at play. I no regrets. If I were single, my path would look completely different.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I,
I'm
I
sure.
could have picked up and gone to Europe or Japan or anywhere a long time ago. But no, I have responsibilities here, and I have no regrets. This is the path I have chosen.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about your recording music. You also perform on stage.
Yeah.
Do you have any one performance that's memorable for you for some reason it stands out from the other performances you've done? And do you when you go on stage, do you have your own band or how does this happen?
I'm gonna answer in reverse.
Go ahead.
Usually, unfortunately, I don't have my own band. Usually, I don't. For example, I mentioned the three cities of for the Summer of Instrumental Soul. Only one of those cities do I have my own band. The other two cities, they're local to that city. Um,
That's typical.
it
Yeah.
is, and it's also difficult for me because one of the best things about performing live is the ability to just flow freely with the other musicians.
Hmm.
And because there's not that familiarity there, eh, it's difficult. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. So in most cases, yeah, I'm picking up somebody where I'm going. For example, the Charlotte show, we're not even meeting for rehearsal until the week of the show, which is often how it's done. You know,
Yeah, it
uh,
is. You
so
know, I have excuse me, there's another show on my station. I mentioned the Dion Parson, who is a very influential jazz drummer. He has a band called the 21st Century Band, and they're the Caribbean jazz band at Dizzy's regularly. They play at Dizzy's in New York all the time, and the Blue Note, and, other places like that, and they play at Blues Alley in DC. But Dion told me recently his band's been together for 25 years, and they're just realizing now how good they've gotten compared to how they were. They didn't realize back then how, but after you play with the same cats, a long time,
yes,
they know each other's every move,
exactly,
and it becomes so much, it's synchronized so much better.
it
And
is.
and you could, and it doesn't have to be structured, which is part of what makes jazz so great because they know each other. And
Right.
there's no substitute for that in jazz, really.
No, no, and even in my style, I'll say my style of jazz because I'm
Mhm.
clearly not straight ahead.
Yeah.
Um, it's very true there. Just to vibe and flow and move. Um, excuse me, but to answer your first question or your first part of the question, I it's kind of a tie for me between sharing the stage for it was one song he allowed me to do with him, Marion Meadows. We
Oh God, yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
guy he's such a cool down to earth guy.
yeah.
We got to play together. I played with his band's called the Black Pearl Band. Played a song with them. It's just the energy, and the other one is probably when I opened. I should know the year. I think it's 14. Don't quote me. I think it's 2014 when I opened for of all people Jeff Lauber.
Oh,
Um, I have never been more intimidated in my life. Um, with good reason. Folks know Jeff Lauber is no joke. Um, but that same audience that was there to hear Jeff Lauber gave me my first ever standing ovation. So,
that's
those,
wonderful.
yeah,
You mentioned Marion Meadows. Down to earth. Najee's been on my show too. Najee is so down to earth too. There's
I've
a
heard that.
lot of yeah, a lot of these cats out there that really are at the top of their game. They're just everyday people. They're really
Yes,
nice, great to deal with. So,
yes,
but before we play the next song, I just want to talk a little bit about songwriting. When you write a song, do you start with a riff, a chord, a melody? What is your process when you
yes.
write? Yes, yes to all of those.
It
Okay.
it it just what it depends. Something will come into my mind. I could just be literally walking around and just start humming something, and that something can be a drum line. It could be a bass line. It could be a melody. It just whatever it is. Thank God for smartphones because I will hit the voice recorder and I'm a horrible singer, but I'll either try to sing it or whistle it into my voice recorder. So I'll have it because I know if I don't do that at that moment, it's gone forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just depends. And even like I said, most times with not every time, but most times when it comes to my parts, I really don't know what I'm going to play until I get it back from my producer. And then I'll create my part. Sometimes I might have a little bit of an idea, but almost never have I started with the melody.
Are most of your recordings done with artists in separate locales doing their parts? So you don't bring a band to the studio. You haven't done that.
I've in fact this last album, Resilient, the only person I ever saw in person was one producer, Taz Fields, and one keyboard player. I'm trying to remember who it was. I should remember his name. He's actually the MD for Stephanie Mills, and right now, for some reason, I can't think of his name. But everybody else, all the other songs, and I used 4 producers on this album.
Wow.
Yes, one was in Maryland, 2 were in Memphis, and Adam is in California. Never saw anybody face to face, and I know for a fact with Adam, I thought he said the drummer was in Spain, recorded his part and sent it back over. So he never even saw the people that he was working with. It's very common. And I by the way, I do not record my flute in a professional studio. I will not do it.
And the reason? Because
I feel like I'm in a fishbowl and I don't like that. This is going to sound really odd for performing artists. I don't like the attention.
You don't think you would enjoy having the other artists with you in the studio, laying down the music together?
That would be different. That I would do. But if it's piecemeal the way we're doing it, no, then now I'm the only guy in the booth. No. That's not my cup of tea.
Well, have you thought about bringing the artists to a studio and recording with all of them simultaneously? Yeah, because it's a different kind of experience completely.
I've thought about it, and then what brought me back to my senses?
Money.
My wallet.
Yeah, money. Yeah.
So maybe someday.
Yeah, look, there are plenty of local artists that you can pull together for a high quality band. I mean, there's plenty of big names around town where you don't have the travel expense or anything like that.
True.
But anyway, let's play The Grind. I want to go on to another song of yours. Let's play The Grind. So tell everybody the backstory on this song, and then we'll go ahead and play it for them.
The Grind, it was actually, the title came from an old saying. Some people still say it, hey, stay on your grind. It's whatever your mission is. Be true to it, no matter how difficult it gets. Stay with it. And this is a song I actually did have a melody for before I did anything else. It's a fun song. Like most things that I do in instrumental soul, as I call it, it's got a theme behind it, and you can feel a lot of the different genre elements incorporated in this song. But I really had fun writing and recording The Grind.
I'm curious because you put the songs together with artists in different locales. When it all comes together, do you give it to anybody else to ask how their opinion of it, and do you do the mix and mastering for the final result? I mean, what happens?
To the first part of the question, do I ask anybody else? This is going to sound strange to people, but hey, my youngest daughter, who is now, she'll be 30 this year.
Wow. Okay.
She is my sounding board, my music barometer for everything I do. She's an old soul. I mean, she probably, all my girls do to a degree, but my youngest especially, Tiffany, what she can hear in music is amazing. And she's not a musician, so don't ask me how this happened. So I will bounce something off of her, and based on what feedback I get from her, that'll usually determine if I'm going in the right direction or not.
That's great.
Now, as far as mixing and mastering, no, that's not my thing. I leave professional stuff to the professionals, so I pay for that. Mastering all the songs were mastered. Steve Hall, that's his name. Steve Hall out in the Pacific Northwest, he mastered everything. Mixing was done by various people. Taz Fields, I believe he mixed everything he produced, and some of the other things were produced by Kurt Clayton, who's a music director for Confunction and a bunch of people.
Wow. Okay. You got some good people on the project.
Absolutely.
All right. This is The Grind by Darryl Evan Jones. Let's let everybody listen to this. Wow. That's powerful stuff you're putting out there. You know, you have some more comments from people. Let me see what we have. Um, Carol King. It couldn't be the Carol King, could it? Hard, hard, deep, hot.
Thank you, thank you.
Tamika Rowan. Definite elements of rock, jazz, and funk. Love it.
She gets it. She gets it.
Yep. Chuck Thomas. You rock that thing, bro.
Thank you, thank you.
Kelly Marshall. Love the break. Well arranged.
Ah, people are paying attention. Yes, yes.
Yeah, here's another one. Dolores Nutshell. I can see why you don't have vocals. LOL.
Oh my.
You got people really listening carefully, that's for sure.
They are. They are. Wow. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, we get a really good audience, you know. I have a thought question for you.
Uh-oh.
If you could collaborate with any composer, musician, vocalist,
Mm,
songwriter, lyricist, producer,
mm,
anytime, any century,
mm.
any place in the world, who would be number one on your bucket list and why?
Oh, they got to be number one. I can't get like three choices.
You get one.
Oh,
You want two more, you got to pay for them.
I think if it had to be one, oh God, there were actually three that I wanted. And since no one knows who the other two are, it won't be any disrespect. I think the one that could push me and take me to the next level the most. This is going to sound strange. I think it's Timbaland.
Timberland.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain that, please.
Timbaland is he has this crazy ability to hear rhythms that should not be there, should not work, and he brings them to life. And because of his rhythmic arrangements, that funk soul element just pours out of me. Because so here's the thing: if you listen to a lot of my music, you're going to hear elements of Parliament Funkadelic.
Hmm.
You're going to hear some classical. You're going to hear hip hop, and I'm talking old school hip hop, not today. I'm talking
Yeah.
like DMX, that kind of Busta Rhymes, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Timbaland, he would be the guy. I mean, I'm gonna sneak it in here anyway. I'm gonna have to pay for it. But I was thinking of the trio of this. This is the oddest trio, I promise. Timbaland, David Sanborn, and George Clinton. That's
Oh, no.
what I was, because David Sanborn is my favorite sax player ever, and those three together, oh my goodness, it would just be wicked.
Didn't Timberland write the theme song for that TV station that plays all the old classic movies?
Not Turner Classic.
Turner Classic. I think he wrote that theme song.
So I feel there you
Yeah.
go. Then I'm right. Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure he's the one that wrote it. You
Yeah.
know, and he, it's an odd song. He put it all together. It's
Yeah,
you
I get the feeling, I've never met him, of course,
Yeah.
but I get the feeling that we have some similarities, growing up in not the best areas, but being open to so many different kinds of music. I mean, my God, I grew up listening to country music. Kenny Rogers is still my favorite country artist ever.
he was so honest in his music.
Oh God, I love his
Genuine.
voice,
Yeah.
his presentation,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Yeah, Timbaland's the guy.
Gotcha. That sounds great. Now, I want to move to something else that I found really intriguing. You did a song, Me Antilles,
Yeah.
and you said that you felt compelled to write that song to pay homage to people and celebrate the Caribbean, whose ancestors were forced from Africa, worked on plantations as slaves, and whom would later thrive what's your connection to the Caribbean and to why this song? Yeah.
Okay, there's no genealogical connection to the Caribbean that I'm aware of. The only plantations I'm aware of that my ancestors worked were in the Carolinas in Virginia, because I know for a fact my father grew up on a plantation because my grandfather was a sharecropper.
Gotcha.
But you ever go somewhere and you get there and you feel like you always should have been there, you just belong. That's the Caribbean for me. And to be honest, Me and Tilly's, and I love the song, I really love it, was a bit of an accident. It was never in its inception intended to be a Caribbean song. It wasn't. It was supposed to be a jazz song, anchored by an upright bass. This was one of those cases where I had a bass line in my mind, and I sang it to my iPhone. And to my best of my recollection, the bass line, and you'll probably notice the similarity to the flute melody now. The bass line was actually supposed to go something like doom 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 doom. That was supposed to be the bass line. So I sang that to my iPhone, but I sang it without a click track. So when I uploaded it into my DAW, though I had the beats per minute right, the timing was off. So, and I quantized it. And when I quantized it, it shifted the rhythm from that to something that sounded more Caribbean. So I put together a bunch of samples and stuff, and I put this song together and had this really fun pop sounding song. And even then it sounded pop Caribbean more. So right. I had this crazy idea that I was going to shop this thing to Rihanna. Yeah, how am I getting in touch with Rihanna? Right. So once I came down to earth, I sent my song idea to a buddy of mine, a producer out in Charlotte. And when he sent it back, he had slowed it down a little bit and played it with his gospel influence. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with this song. Unfortunately, Tyrus Washington is his name. Tyrus he wasn't able to actually see it through. So I sent it to my other producer up in Maryland, Alfonso Dizelle, and he took it to the next level, and we kept building it. And then I thought of these vocals, these minor vocals that should be on it, and built that. Jamil Freeman Hunter, she's the one female singer on there, though it sounds like there's a choir of women. There's not. So that's how Me and Tilly's was born into what it is now.
Wow, I wouldn't have expected that explanation. that got me by surprise.
Yeah.
So let's play Me and Tilly's for everybody, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Okay.
One, two, three, four.
Cuba, Curacao, Dominica, none of us dependencies of Venezuela, Granada, Guadalupe, Española, Jamaica, Martinique, Montserrat, Nueva Esperanza, Ibis, Puerto Rico, Sama, St. Barts, St. Croix, St. Eustatius, St. John, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Martin, St. Thomas, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow. Yeah. You got some great comments on this one too. People are really enjoying your music tonight. Let
I
me see what
appreciate y'all.
let me see what this some of the comments were. Yeah, like 4 or 5. This one is Diego Cantrell. I'm Jamaican. You can come down here anytime.
Diego, make it happen. I'll be there.
Eloise Little. You don't expect the flute in your face. And I love this. I've never heard anything like it. Who's the keyboard artist?
Keyboards on that was my producer Alfonso DeSalle.
Okay. Sandy Meyer. This is so island funky. Only thing missing is a steel drum.
I know. I wanted one so bad, but sorry,
Do you know Victor Thomas?
I do not. Not yet.
Victor Thomas is the master of the steel drum.
Really?
The master. Yeah, I can hook you up with him.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Love to have him on that song doing it live.
Yeah. Victor is, like I said, if you look in jazz and look at steel drum, that's one of the things that's been introduced from the Caribbean. They introduced the steel drum into jazz. It wasn't there before, so
Right.
it gives it a whole different feel. Manny Vasquez, the vocal made the island. Vocal made this. Oh, the vocal made this island. Great composition.
Man, okay. So quick story about the vocals. I mentioned Jamil Freeman Hunter. This is not vocal, but the drummer is actually Janet Jackson's drummer, Gerard Sullivan, personal friend of mine. He did me a real solid playing he played on at least half the album. But the other vocals, because what I wanted to do was blend again. This is instrumental soul, so you can feel there was some gospel in there. There was some classical. You got the Caribbean. You got a little feel of jazz in it. And with the Afro-Caribbean, I wanted in the vocals, Jamil had to sing 4-part harmony 4 times.
Wow.
Not that she made any mistakes. It's just my producer wanted that fullness of the female voice. For the male voices, because if you listen to most African music, you're going to have these beautiful highs and you have these rich lows, right?
Sure.
So I called a buddy of mine from Philly. I called 2 people, but Eric Leaks was able to do it. He sang his part. Thank God for technology, because he sang his part into his iPhone and sent it to me. He didn't have access to a studio. And then I'm not a singer, but Eric's voice is down here and mine is up here. So I sang the male mids, and producer just made everything work.
Yeah, it really works great, and I think that's why people are commenting on the vocals. Really, to some people, made it really island the way it was put together. Yeah. Darryl, you're
by the way, the YouTube video. Y'all look it up.
Gotcha. Okay, good. You're a multi-genre artist, and this has been a plus or a minus in your career. What do you think? Because like some people work within a certain genre and they move up the ladder and they make their career. Being a multi-genre artist, do you think it's a plus or a minus for your career development?
My artist development, it's a plus. My career, probably a minus.
Oh, yeah.
Because as we know, especially, and I'm not bashing America, but especially in America, they want to put you in a box so they know how to identify you, rather than just say, hey, it's music. But they put you in the box, and then they make these really tight lines they want to confine you to. And if you don't stay within those lines, then you're basically kicked off the island. Well, I never got on the island
Yeah.
because I don't music. Here's what music is supposed to be to me. This is just me. Music is supposed to be a way to convey emotion, thought, feeling. And if you can't feel what I'm doing, then why am I doing it? I shouldn't be doing it just because, oh, it's cute and it'll get me a paycheck. That's a disservice to the talent to me. But that's
You
that's
know,
just me.
you know, when I was a kid, pop music meant popular. Now
Yes.
it's a genre.
Exactly. I thought it was me. I'm like, wait, didn't that back then mean? Okay, but anyway, yes.
Exactly. That's how things change. Let me ask you this question. Given what you know today, and looking, on how you've developed as an artist, what advice would you give to Darryl Evan Jones when he was a young man, knowing what you know now?
Save up a lot of money. Really, because this is for
You momentarily have locked up. I don't know if you can hear me, Darryl, but you've locked up. So, what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can reboot or come back in, I'm going to play the last song of the evening, Road Trip, and then you can tell everybody about it afterwards. So, I'll try to text you to let you know that you've kind of been kicked out so you can put yourself back in. Hi, everybody. That was one of the just a great track. That's called Road Trip. It's one of the more recent releases from Darryl. And Darryl had an electrical storm, and he's had some technical issues, and his image isn't showing up. Let me see if I put him up here, if we can hear him. Darryl? No, see, it's not connecting. Um, Well, look, it's been a wonderful show. I really appreciate everybody listening in. You know, these things happen technically. Um, you can follow Darryl on his Instagram pages and on his social media. And we're going to have Darryl come back again because he's going to be working on some new music this year. And I want to thank everybody for, participating and comments. We had a large audience tonight, and we'll see you again next week. So everybody, have a great week, and we'll be talking again. I'm Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion Power
My name
Hour.
is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.